The Geek Show is back, and we're not just using this as a video game vehicle. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things within pop culture. Today, we're talking about a specific thing of movies, something in movies that has bugged me for a long time. And also, I've been told off for not moving my arms around enough. So, hey, have that, editor. And we'll see you on the other side. Yes, we're back on the Geek Show. Last few times we've talked about video games being disappointing. Um, take that however you want, but yeah, we're not just doing discussions about video games because that has never been what the Geek Show was about. We've always been a one-stop shop for all sorts of stuff. I am Rob, and I've been joined by other Rob. So say hello, other Rob.
Hello, other Rob.
You see, people who do that just are the worst.
Yep, I am. It's
Absolute
official.
worst.
It's official. I am the worst.
Yeah. So this week, I suggested in the intro that it was something that's bugged me for a while, and it's not just me who's noticed this. I assume it's not just me. I'm only my basis of saying that is the fact that there was a good joke from a British Asian comedian called Paul Chowdhury, who made a comment about Hollywood movies are world cinema. Because this is England, we're English, we're Scottish, we're Irish, we're Welsh. Where does America come into that? And yet you go into a cinema, one of the chains, whether Cineworld, View, Showcase, Picture House, any of the big ones.
Is Audience still a chain?
Audience still a chain, of course it is. Not around here, but it's still a chain. But you go around to one of those big sort of tentpole cinemas, and I'd say about 95% of the time, the movies showing are going to be American or a blockbuster American or, North American at the very least.
Or a
And
really big name Bollywood movie?
yeah, which is surprisingly regular nowadays.
But it's pretty much the only thing that I've noticed that can make it in.
Yeah. Which is good because it shows that it's catering to an audience. There's like a big Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi and Bengali community across England.
Yeah.
And having movies in cinemas that cater to that is good. But you'd think that that'd be sort of supplementary as far as what they put out, and the rest would be English cinema, English movies. But they're not. The number of English-born, English-produced, Scottish, Irish, whatever, produced movies in cinemas of those territories, especially mainstream big cinemas where the most eyeballs are, is very, very minimal. In fact, if you want to go and see a Home Islands movie in a Home Island cinema, that's an easier way of saying it, you have to go to an art house cinema. And I think that's abhorrent.
Yeah, I mean, the closest art house cinema to where we are is about 40 miles away.
There's one in a town about 8 to 10 miles, but they're absolute wastes of space, and I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to name them and shame them, but the nearest legitimate art house cinema, is in Newcastle upon Tyne, the Tyneside Cinema. There's one in York, which is about the same sort of distance away.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to basically go travelling if you want to see a British film in a British cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I can't honestly remember the last time I saw a British film in a British cinema.
Well, I can. What was it called now? Polite Society? Yeah, Polite Society.
Oh yeah, that was one I wanted to see, but I heard mixed reviews about it.
I don't care about the mixed reviews. It's really cool. Go and see it. But yeah, the point is they're very rare. And there's sort of strands to what that means. The ones that have any sort of cut through are stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I imagine, listeners, you could sort of, when somebody says British cinema to you, you have like this image of what a British movie is. You'd largely think it's either going to be an inner city social drama, social realist drama, or something with posh people, and they're all white, posh white people with posh hats on.
Do you know what the stereotypical British film is to a lot of my American friends?
What?
Something like The King's Speech.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a posh movie with posh white people with posh hats.
Yeah. They don't think social inner city type movies. They think posh movie with posh white people in posh
Doing posh
hats.
stuff, having posh problems.
Yes.
Like, posh problems is, oh no, the butler called in sick. What does one to do?
And a lot of those movies will be they'll be what's it? Trophy bait movies.
Oscar bait, but
Yeah.
in this country, BAFTA bait as well is a thing. But
That's why I
saying
use the
BAFTA
term
bait,
trophy bait rather than
calling them BAFTA bait or Biffa bait, it sounds kind of.
see Biffa Bait just sounds like a comic character.
It sounds like felonious intent.
I mean, wasn't there a Viz character called Biffa Bacon?
I have no idea.
Yeah, there was a Viz character I'm sure called Biffa Bacon. So I
I'll
could never
just
take that seriously.
I'll nod and smile as far as that. But it's never always been like that. British cinema is, I think it's. Well, let's just look at the other mediums before we get to movies.
Hmm.
The British music industry is one of the top five. The others being France, Germany, America, and Japan. I'm not going to quote the order, but they're the biggest five music industries on the planet.
Korea's getting there though. Korea,
Yeah,
well, actually, yeah, no, I'd say Korea is in there now.
yeah, it's there or thereabouts. But my point is, the pop charts and all the album charts in this country aren't
Yeah,
all dictated by American stuff. American stuff in music, it kind of like curated highlights. We only really get the best stuff over here, so we don't get to see the worst.
best is questionable.
Well, best marketing.
Yeah, best marketing.
So yeah, it's a bit more of a diverse marketplace where British music is British.
Yeah,
You can go into HMV or any other record shop, and most have no issues finding British artists. Yeah. Movies though, our movies, we have like such a proud history. Some of the best filmmakers of all time: Alfred Hitchcock, David Lean. The 1960s, where we had all sorts of amazing things going on. We had like an incredible era of filmmaking in Britain in the 60s,
yeah.
70s with Hammer horror and still a lot of that sort of interesting, subversive sort that were making movies.
Well, it's not just in terms of directors; it's actors as well. We have
Oh
some of the
yeah, of
finest
course.
directors, and even now we have some of the best directors and actors, or some of the most notable directors and actors in
Yeah,
the world.
that is another issue that this does encompass. So, but yeah, 60s great, 70s great, 80s there was a lot of sort of social realist stuff, the rise of that. 90s still social realisty.
Hmm.
90s or 2000s, I think then it's on a quick march to flatlining.
Yeah,
2010, basically nothing. 2020, I'd go as far as to say we don't have a filmmaking industry. Um,
yeah, it
I'm
really
not.
doesn't feel like it.
No, I'm not going to say something stupid like it's dead, because it's never dead and it always comes back. We're very resilient at making stuff in this country, regardless of the Tories trying to kill us all through policy. But let's not get into that.
Yeah,
And the byproduct of that is because a lot of our stuff, and the number of things that we are producing has gone from a lot to very little. Um, it's squeezed out different genres. So the stuff that does get produced is that Oscar bait, is that awards bait, is that social realist drama, is the humble stuff which depicts a very sort of black and white image of this country, of everybody who's struggling is miserable.
it's very classist, isn't it?
yeah, it enforces a hell of a lot of class stereotypes.
I mean, when you think about a lot of the films that seem to attract attention for the from the awards, it's always the bleak lower class or the foppish upper class.
Yeah, and us, I mean, we're working class, and happily and content and proudly working class.
Yeah,
But me not know what happy is, me know only misery.
yeah,
My
because
life has a black and white filter over all of it. Everything's bad. I never smile. The last time I smiled, I went to the doctor because I thought it was indigestion, but the doctor said, no, it's a smile. And I was like, what?
yeah,
No.
and it just feels like the movie industry or what passes as the movie industry these days. And I do have thoughts on why it is the way it is now, but it just feels like they're outsiders looking in with a very distorted view of what it means to be working class or what it means to be
Yeah,
upper
it's
class,
the term that they've got for the working class material is poverty porn.
which a lot of it, I'll be honest, okay, they've kind of taken that from TV shows like Benefit Street and stuff like that.
Well, the sort of concurrent came along the same side and the same
Yeah.
time as each other.
But there's films from other countries where they focus on the working class and the lower class, but they're nowhere near as depressing as we seem to make them.
Yeah, there's joy in in the working class,
You know,
but not in British stuff. It's just all hell on
it,
earth.
it feels weird. And so, take something where the family is predominantly working class. Let's pick a current TV show, for example, Kim's Convenience,
Yeah,
right? It's about immigrant family. They've come to America
well,
and they're,
Canada, but yeah,
well, Canada, they're working class. They're obviously working class. There are trials and tribulations, but there are also high points. There are also comedy points. There are also dramatic points. But it's just basically kind of more observational than depressing.
well, it's not where I was leading this conversation, but it is about representation.
Yeah,
Um, LGBT people of color, they don't want their representations to be one dimensional, how they can only be paragons of all that is good and brilliant.
yeah,
True representation allows people to be everything that anybody else is.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
a cosmopolitan and broad selection of the different types of people that can exist. LGBT and people of color can be assholes just as much as white people can, but pop culture doesn't really represent it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, the age old thing is when you have somebody with a disability
Yeah.
and they're always a character of sympathy. And all I've kept thinking is, I know many people with disabilities, and you know what? Some of them are absolute assholes, and I say that to their face
Mm.
because they are.
Yeah. But to go back to the film industry thing, there's like consequences of the fact that the film industry in this country has
Mm.
this very, very limited perception and representation of what the stuff, the people who we are, the stories
Yeah,
that we can tell. So that's resulted in pretty much anybody who has like one good luck film
yeah,
being poached by Hollywood. The number of British actors in America is ridiculous. Directors who have like one lucky break, they don't have like a career of making stuff in the UK. They get picked up by a Hollywood studio and signed up by a Hollywood studio and make them. So basically, we're like a football analogy. We're like the plucky upstart team in the Premier League where we buy a player from abroad that have a great first season, but that great first season didn't count because the top four teams are over there, and the top four teams are going to spend millions and millions of pounds, and that plucky upstart player can't say no to it.
yeah. We're basically a feeder team.
Yeah.
I think that was the term for them. It was a lower league football team that basically they used as a training camp.
Yeah, that's what we are. British cinema film industry is a training camp for Hollywood.
Yeah,
And it's
which
disgusting.
I mean, you told me once before, right? A long time ago, this was that in certain countries, their cinemas, by law, have to show a certain number of
Yeah,
Let's call them indigenous films.
yeah.
Films from that country.
Korea had one, but they dropped it, and there was a whole amount of stress that came out of that. Choi Min Sik, if you don't know him, he is the actor who was the lead man in Old Boy.
Yeah,
He basically quit acting because they got rid of the quota.
yeah.
I can't remember what the number was, but it dictated that a certain number of films in Korean cinema had to be Korean produced and Korean acted and Korean whatever. Um, and then they got rid of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, when that was in order, the Korean stuff was amazing. It was the Korean new wave, and everybody looked at Korea and said, "Hollywood, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing. What you're doing is garbage. Look at Korea. Korea, amazing."
Yeah, but then you got the Hollywood invasion of remakes with the
No, but the
remake of
point
Old
is,
Boy and various other things.
once they got rid of that quota, the stuff
Mm.
that Korea produced is a lot more generic.
That's what I mean. And part of that was because Hollywood looked at Korea and did exactly to Korea what they did to Japan with J horror and stuff like that. When they looked at it and said, you know what, we can't have this. We can't have another country making films that are better than what we can make. So we have to make our own version of it. So I mean, it's like films like Let the Right One In became Let Them In. The Grudge then became this movie with Sarah Michelle Gellar, which, I'm not a fan of hers, but she was pretty good in it. Okay, and they did at least set it in Japan in a Japanese house. They kept
Yeah,
tried to keep it as close to it as the
I
original as
think
possible. Fair enough.
I think it was the same director as well.
Yeah. The Ring, on the other hand, what a big pile of shite. I'm sorry, but the remake of The Ring.
It was a floor of dicks, Rob. That's what the remake of The Ring was. It was a
Yes, it
floor of
was.
dicks.
It was a floor of dicks. And then you had Dark Water, which, again, I don't understand. It was okay, yeah, fine. The original film was great, but the Hollywood remake?
Yeah, you know what? The sort of the context and connotations and
Yeah,
inference of all of this is. Every film industry in the world is practice before you get to Hollywood.
yeah,
It's not real cinema.
no.
Hollywood in America is real cinema. Everything else is just warm up.
See,
Which
I will openly challenge that statement right here, right
I
now.
was about to, but go on.
Yeah, because I want, if Hollywood is the world of cinema, if Hollywood is king shit when it comes to cinema, right?
Yeah.
Then I demand they do remakes of certain Bollywood movies, and I demand that they make them musicals like they do in Bollywood. I demand
Yeah.
dancing in the streets. I demand that shot behind a tree where they do that.
Yeah, that's the
That
thing,
one.
isn't it? I remember when La La Land came out and everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, don't make movies like that anymore." And
And
Bollywood's like, "Hang on,
India,
mate,
yeah,
what are you?"
the entire Bollywood industry is looking at like, what am I, chopped liver? What's going on here?
Yeah, but it's not just Bollywood and India. It's like there's two separate film industries in Italy. There's two separate film industries in India. There was
Yeah,
Bollywood and Tollywood, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I mean, there's Bollywood and Tollywood, and then over in Africa, is it the Nigerian industry is called Nollywood or something like that.
Yeah, I think
Is it
that's
Nigerian?
Nigerian. And then there's in I think it is Uganda. It's Wakaliwood.
Yeah, and everything seems to be a
Who killed
variation.
Practice Allen? Who killed Captain Alex? Rob?
Yeah,
Who killed
who
Captain Alex?
killed Captain Alex? That's the question we need to find out. Um, Film R11.
Mm.
The problem I have with all of these variations, all of these different film industries, is that they all have Ollywood. I'm saying, screw that. Pick your own name. You don't have to go with Bollywood or Nollywood
Yeah.
or Tollywood.
Again, it's going back to what I just said. It's the inference that the number one film industry, the most important film industry, is whatever America is doing.
Which is so completely America centric, and I hate that because it sweeps into every single form of media, whether it's music or video games or movies or books or whatever. I've read so many books by British authors, right? And I've seen the change from the 80s to the 90s to the noughties to the 2010s to now about how much influence American fiction, especially when it comes to science fiction and fantasy, has had on British writers.
Hmm.
And it's shocking. I mean, we have so much in terms of our science and technology basis, we have so many great minds out there who are just thinking of the future and how they can apply various technologies. That little bit of reading, I mean, we have a magazine called The New Scientist. Do you know how many of these science fiction authors in the UK read New Scientist? Virtually none.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm
Okay.
really not.
So the scientific basis when it comes to writing science fiction, is flawed because
Yeah,
science is hokey. When it comes to fantasy, a lot of their fantasy is based on what American writers are doing. We have thousands of years of folk history here.
absolutely. And here's the question that I think we're sort of teetering on the edge of. Do I think it's racist? No, I don't. Do I think it's
It's
like a
not.
product of racism? It's not a product of racism. It's a product of globalization.
I would say colonialism.
Yeah, colonialism, globalization, capitalism,
Yeah,
and I think in all of those stories, it's always around America.
yeah. It is always so very, very America centric.
America are the company. Well, yeah, they basically are a company, aren't they? It's not run like a country; it's run like a company. Um,
Do you know?
but America is the country that capitalism built. It wasn't built by anything else.
Right, and this is right. This is good. I have had this in my head for a long time, and I've wanted to say it on a show for a long, long time. There's a manga called I Shield 21, right? And it's
I
all
know
about
of it.
American football. I like it because number one, it is about a sport that doesn't get a lot of focus in sports, manga, and anime. And I also like it because the Japanese team, the combined Japanese team from the different schools in Japan, have to take on the best team in the world, which is the American team, right?
Mm,
And
yes.
obviously, you have variations on that now with things like Kuroko's basketball and stuff like that. But I Shield 21 kind of did it first. Kind of did it early rather than first. Um, but there's a line in there where one of the main guys from the Japanese team, he's like the strategist and everything like that, and he's talking to the guy who's supposed to be the strongest American footballer in like at that level, at that age group, and he calls him the very, very America Sama. And I love that term. I think it's such a descriptive term of just how America is now when it comes to media in the world. It is the very, very America Sama, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, and I want to say this. This conversation. I didn't think it up. I didn't want to talk about it because of a case of nationalism.
Yeah.
It's not nationalism because nationalism is thinking your country is better than everybody else, and
We really
you
don't think that.
you will take no criticism of it whatsoever. You are so
Yeah,
aggressively your country is number one. Does that
it's
sound like
hilarious.
anybody? Does that sound like
It,
any people that I might and
it's hilarious
patriotism?
how far away from that we are.
Yes. And patriotism is loving your country and being able to criticize it. And
Yeah, I mean, the two are often conflated with each other, but they are very, very different things. A true patriot actually feels a responsibility to criticize the country when the country goes wrong, when the government goes wrong.
yes, and this is what this conversation is born out of. It's born out of frustration. It's born out of patriotism, because I genuinely think some of the movies that come out of the UK and some of the talent that comes out of the UK is phenomenal. I don't like that word. Really good, really good. Um, and we don't. And just in the case of cinema, our cinemas don't celebrate all of this amazing talent.
Yeah,
You've got to go to small little rinky-dink indie cinemas that might show it for a few days.
yeah,
And it just really breaks my heart, I'll be honest, because we've got such a proud history of cinema and filmmakers and creators and artists and musicians and all sorts. And movies are this industry where all of those people can come together and make this great thing and put on a canvas for all sorts of people to see. But why do that when there's a new Marvel movie? And that sort of
yeah.
thing just really, it is heartbreaking, as somebody who's British and patriotic in the actual meaning of the sense, who wants to see Britain and what we produce, Britain and Ireland, do really well. But no, there's a new Star Wars.
Well, it kind of plays into what I said to you before. I think one of the reasons that I thought of as to why we're in the situation we're in with the film industry at the moment, and why we've basically become a feeder team for the American industry, it has to do with, and this is gonna be political to a degree, but
Let's be honest, this is a political episode.
it is a political episode, right? Back in the 1980s, we used to make stuff, right? We used to have a strong manufacturing base, 1970s to the 1980s. But then the Tory government at the time decided to privatize a lot of stuff. And we started getting rid of coal mines. We started getting rid of all sorts of stuff. We sold off
We should have got
our,
rid of coal mines, to be honest,
yeah.
though. That was.
The thing is, we sold off our rail, our utilities, our telecommunications, things that we should have kept as a state. We sold off to companies that were effectively owned by other countries, and that's one of the reasons why we're in the state we're in now as a country. But here's the thing: the idea at the time was that we were going to move to a more service-based economy, which is why we have call centers and various things like that
A lot of
dotted
our
around
call
the country.
centres are in the Indian subcontinent. That no.
Now they are, but
Yeah.
during the 90s, for a period, there was a lot of call centers in the UK. And then they started finding out that they could pay people less if they had them in India and Pakistan and places like that. And that's been the way things have gone ever since then. The problem is that mentality seeped into other aspects of the country, especially when it came to entertainment. And so now in the British film industry, we're more of a service economy to the American industry.
Yes, we are.
And that's unfortunately how things stand at the moment. And until the government and various other higher bodies decide to make changes, fundamental changes to the state of play, I mean, we need to enact something like the Koreans used to have. We need to have something like a set number of films shown in cinemas need to be from the British industry in order to support the British industry, because right now it has no support. It's in total free fall.
Yeah.
We make films for other countries. We don't make films for our country.
And the worst thing is, you know where a lot of the funding comes from?
Us?
Europe.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Well, not for long. That's going to dry up soon as well.
Yeah.
Because we're no longer part of Europe.
No. So this is basically a video which say, pardon my language, but fuck Brexit.
Yeah.
This is what the tone of this video is.
It's unfortunate because at the end of the day, some of the arguments that they had were valid, but not all.
And also you can extend this sort of like theme of conversation and issue to small independent music venues, independent theatres, and across all of the arts and culture, really.
Yeah. Well, across all media, in fact, everything from video games to music to publishing, the whole thing. It's pretty much affected all creative communities within the UK.
And the UK is one of the largest economies on the planet. It's not as high as it used to be, but it's one of the largest economies on the planet. And
oh no, according to the people who are high in the government, and I mean that quite literally high, because, you know, all those people in the government who still believe Brexit was a success, they're on summit, they're definitely high.
Yeah. But I do think that there is, just to sort of make it a bit less fatalist and depressing, the grassroots movement of filmmakers in this country are excellent. They are doing a hell of a lot with very, very little.
Yeah.
My frustration only comes from the fact that effort, those people, that ability, that skill, it needs a platform.
Yeah.
And the ability is there, the desire is there, the people are there, the infrastructure is there, but it's all being bought and paid for by America. So my frustration and justification for this episode is we need to make a breakthrough.
Yeah. I mean, the sad thing is, right, I think back to some of and you and I have different tastes in films, right? But
yeah, I have a good taste, so
You can keep that in as well. So anyway, right. Let's take horror films just as an example, right? I can only think of a couple of films that had, say, gin in them. Stuff like Wishmaster was a gin, yeah, old American horror movie,
Yeah,
Wishmaster.
I'm confused the way you're going with this.
What I'm going to say was Long Time Dead, which was a different take on the idea of a gin. It didn't go down the typical Hollywood route of whatever. It was a very, very British take on a gin, on a horror involving a gin. And there's all, a gin is something that, or genie, if you want to call it that, it's something that doesn't really get used a lot in horror. But when was the last time we had something in, say, British horror when it was something a bit more traditional but used in a different way?
A dark song, the Borderlands,
Yeah,
Host. There's probably others, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But like I said, the indie talent, the ground level
yeah,
indie talent is there. We just need the industry at the top, the cinemas, the people who fund this stuff, to just acknowledge that and say, yes, we are great, aren't we?
yeah.
And give them that platform.
Yeah, we just need to have some of the old film industry back and making films the way we used to.
Yeah. Well, the talent is still there. It's just
The problem is the talent will only stay there for a short while before it goes off and does something else because it's not getting supported. And
yeah.
I keep saying this, and I'll scream this till the day I die. Don't waste talent. It's too hard to come by.
Hmm.
You know.
I don't want sort of take it anywhere from that, because that's the sentiment that I think encapsulates the mood of this episode.
Yeah.
Don't waste talent. It's too hard to come by. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this week. Check out our Patreon, www.patreon.com/ The Geek Show, where we've got all sorts of things going on, like Unseen Asia, articles by me, a series of podcasts in which we look at underappreciated horror franchises from like amazing beginning to, oh my god, what am I putting myself through? And bonus episodes of Pop Screen, articles about X-Files, one coming off a Red Dwarf, all sorts of things going over on Patreon.
Yeah.
But yes, until next time, hopefully we've got something a bit more positive to talk about on the Geek Show. But given that we've been off the air essentially since 2018, there's a lot of stuff that's built up and on our chest.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
we'll
lots of
see.
things have changed.
There's
It's
lots
a
of
totally
stuff.
different world.
Lots of stuff we need to rant about. So it'd be a while before we're balanced. But yeah, do subscribe. Comment
And are
below what
you
you
saying we're
thought.
unhinged?
We're unhinged. Do subscribe though, and comment below of what you think about this talking point. And we'll see you in the next edition of the Geek Show.
Bye.